At night, when others sit down to unwind with an episode of their favorite show, Eric boots up one of his 26 gaming systems. But he doesn't play in the way you or I might. What Eric is about to do is a grueling, challenging practice known as speedrunning.
So speedrunning is the practice of optimizing gameplay with the idea of completing a game as quickly as possible.
For him, it's the ultimate puzzle. And he's not alone. The speedrunning community extends worldwide, with millions of others just like Eric, setting out on a quest for mastery. I'm Doug Frazier, and this is What We Do, where we'll meet the people behind the most intriguing passions, hobbies, and jobs around the world.
As a day job, I work as a cybersecurity researcher.
A major component of Eric's job is reverse engineering, or, as he puts it, solving puzzles.
I basically get the chance to turn everything into a puzzle, into an optimization problem, and it leads to a lot of very interesting ways to spend my time.
Time being the key word here. Speedrunners are relentless in their craft, spending hundreds of hours perfecting their runs. They're not just picking up a controller and hopping into a game, trying to beat it as quickly as possible. They're optimizing each button press and calculating every movement with unwavering precision. Because in speedrunning, every frame counts. Mario Brothers is a classic Nintendo game that takes an average gamer a couple hours to beat, but the top-tier speedrunners can beat it in under 5 minutes. When speedrunner Cosmic broke the Mario Brothers record this year, he did so by less than a second, but his previous best time in 2018 won out by only 4 frames. That's a mere 66 milliseconds.
I cannot believe it! What? How?
It's a mix of art, science, and athleticism, which Eric knows all too well. In fact, he wrote the book on it.
Game begin.
Speedrun Science, a long guide to short playthroughs, is a comprehensive guide to everything video game speedrunning. The history, the rules, types of cheating, theories, and at its core is a guide to the speedrunning process, broken down into 3 phases. Phase 1. Investigation.
Investigation is all about trying to identify everything that the game is and all of the information that kind of helps you build up that core knowledge. You can start to just plot out, oh, there's an enemy here, there's an enemy here, this enemy has this much health. You start to just catalog all of these little bits of information. At this point, you're not actually trying to speedrun anything. You're just learning about the game with the idea that you're building up this toolbox.
Within that toolbox is more than just information about a specific game. It's a catalog of experiences, with each game challenging you in new ways. Eric's catalog is vast, spanning back to when he was just 3 years old.
I owe a lot of my gaming past to my father. We had an Atari 2600, and he would bring that out and I'd just play, and I had no idea what I was doing.
It's a classic sight I relate to, having experienced a video game tradition with my dad and brothers. Except our family game was John Madden Football for Sega Genesis. Gaming wasn't just something to do to pass the time. It was a chance to challenge each other, an opportunity to bond over both shared frustrations and victories. Though you were a single player, you were part of a shared experience.
Set! 42! Green! Pow!
Even as Eric grew older and new video game systems arrived on the shelves, on occasion his dad would dust off the Atari 2600. A quick press of the power button and they were right back to where it all began. The start of Eric developing his video game instinct. This transferable skill of understanding game mechanics is fundamental to Phase 1. It's in this stage you develop your intuition for a game.
And then you move on from there to start figuring out, well, okay, I know all this little bits of pieces. How do they fit together in such a way that I can proceed optimally? And that's where you start to get to routing.
Phase 2. Routing.
Routing is where you make decisions. It becomes a big puzzle. What is the best place to start? Where do you go from there? What actually saves the most time? And what is reasonable to actually complete? Because it's not just about speed. And a lot of people don't really know this until they've tried to jump into it themselves, you're really trying to make the game as easy for you as possible. And that doesn't mean that you're trying to make it easy, but you're trying to make it so that you can perform it again and again, and you'll get similar or the same results every time.
But there's a shark looming in the water. Random number generator, more commonly known as
RNG, stands for random number generator.
Now, unfortunately, I didn't get the best RNG right there, so this isn't going to be a great time.
Where most of any given game is the same every time you play, creating predictability. RNG is the opposite. It's essentially a randomized outcome in a game that's unpredictable.
At the end of the day, randomness is a part of a lot of runs. Think of it like a small-scale gambling setup, where you get this kind of gambler's high. You've done everything else up to this point, and it all just hinges on what happens on this coin flip. It can be kind of annoying when you have those scenarios where there's things that are outside of your control, but in the same way, the payoff from getting them good, getting everything to line up, is very similar to like winning a very small odds jackpot.
As isolated as speedrunning can sound, after all, it's just you in the game for hours on end. Those jackpot moments are often shared experiences. With services like Twitch, gamers around the world live stream their speedrun attempts. While there are thousands of speedrunners, there are millions of fans that tune in to root for their friends and celebrity gamers, creating a community that bears witness and supports each other through the grueling process. Countless hours of tactical conversations, lively debates, and shared wisdom take place online every day. And twice a year, the community rallies together, both online via a live Twitch stream and in person, for an event known as Games Done Quick. It's a week-long event where some of the best speedrunners showcase their skills for charity.
I think I've had a total of 15 GDQ appearances from 2013 onward.
Commentators, along with the player, describe the nuances, techniques, and strategy of what's happening on screen for a casual audience. After all, as a viewer, you can take for granted just how difficult things are when the player seems to be having no trouble at all.
All these platforms, everything that's like blowing in this level, it's all working from as soon as I enter the level. So if I make any mistakes, then I have to make adjustments for them accordingly going through the rest of the level. We're gonna go under here, and we're gonna try to neutral bop and then time this one.
The event is streamed live through Twitch, where viewers can donate to that event's charity of choice. Every year, Games Done Quick evolves and grows, with more money being raised for charity. In January of 2010, the event raised $10,000. Now, 10 years later, in January of 2020, Games Done Quick raised a record $3,164,022 in just 1 week. It's incredible what can happen when a community gets together. And it's even more impressive what can come when that community meets compassion.
Behind the scenes, it's just a really close-knit and tight-knit community. There are 2 times a year a chance to kind of like see their friends that they talk with online all the time. From like the moment that, you know, everybody just kind of sees each other, it's just like this immediate like warmth.
Phase 3. Execution.
That's a lot of what you see when you go into somebody's stream nowadays. They're going to be practicing, they're going to be doing runs. That's all part of the execution phase. But it also turns into the little flares. And this is where a lot of kind of the personality comes from individual speedrunners. And you might be able to tell differences between high-level runners of the same game, even though they have similar times. Some of their gameplay might look very different. I think that's what draws a lot of people to it, is that you do have a lot of ability to stress your creative focus, to investigate new things about a game that you loved, or in some cases a game that you hated and wanted revenge on.
That is, if you can handle the mental strain of the execution phase.
There's all sorts of psychological tricks to do practice better, for example, to make sure that what you are working on sticks with you better.
The first comes long before you ever sit down to play. What's your motivation? You need to get specific, measurable goals, a target you can hit. There's also memory tricks like chunking, where you group information, such as specific locations of enemies, for easier recall. But the core 3 psychological tricks are repetition, reinforcement, and the often overlooked frustration management.
With a lot of runs and video games in general, it's astronomical to be able to get everything to line up.
As Eric puts it in his book, frustration is a distraction. Your brain becomes so preoccupied with being frustrated that it reduces your capacity to process other things. Some speedrunners push this to the limit with blindfolded or even one-handed speedruns. The fact that it could all fall apart at any moment is a cornerstone of speedrunning fun. But a lack of frustration management in any form of speedrunning can lead to bouts of rage quitting.
Don't do it!
No! I had a f***ing jump head that I could have used, man. Those kids were so f***ing bad, dude.
Or even worse, giving up altogether. Luckily, there's a huge support system. There's YouTube tutorials, Twitch speedruns, countless hours of people sharing what they've learned, often in real time.
A lot of times people will get very frustrated with what they see as a lack of improvement on their part. The trick is to make sure that you're always doing something that you enjoy. I mean, that's at the core what games are. And if you push it to the point where the frustration overtakes any kind of joy that you get from actually getting a good run in or just going through the process, then you need to step back and move on. And some people would ignore that advice, and I'd say that that actually hurts them in the long run.
Video game speedrunning is a game in itself, one that's never ending. Speedrunners are still finding better routes in games that are decades old. Because just when you think you've finally created the ultimate speedrun, someone comes along and finds a new shortcut, or a way to shave off half a second by manipulating a loading screen. The seemingly infinite possibilities keep many speedrunners on the hunt for the next game to master.
You know, I don't think I could put down speedrunning itself anytime soon. I think out of the 26 consoles and platforms that I identified, there's about 17 that I still need to do runs on.
You got a lot of work ahead of you.
I do. But that's part of the fun.
After the detective work of investigation, the big gambles of routing, and the frustrations of execution, the ultimate payoff isn't a world title. It's the pleasure that comes from continuously showing up in the face of adversity. It's accepting that your journey has no end credits, or a celebration when you save the princess. It's setting out on an adventure for the sake of the challenge, not the spoils. An adventure where community and passion fuel each other, 1 millisecond at a time. Hey guys, thanks so much for listening. Would you mind leaving a rating and review for the show? It only takes a moment and it's a huge help. And be sure to subscribe so you don't miss any new episodes. Until next time, stay curious. What We Do is produced by me, Doug Fraser, for WHRO Public Media.